So today I'm going to go over how to install a soffit vent like you see here. This one here is a 8x16, which is a fairly standard size. They also come in half this size, 4x16, and then if you shop around you can find ones that are 6x16 depending on what you're looking for. And also they have round ones, circular, and other sizes as well, but for rectangular that's what I'm going to go over today. I have two of them. I have taken the UPC sticker off the back of them just because you can see that once they're up in the area if you look through, and it's just one more place where it's blocking airflow through. I've made a template here for the 8x16. It happens to be 7x15. This is the template I'm going to use to trace out on my soffit before I cut it. And then that way you can see here it still has a bit of edge left, and that's because when I go to put these up I'm going to put a bead of caulk around the outside before I screw them in, just so they're nice and sealed, so insects and things of the sort don't get in, yet the airflow still is able to, right? The template I labeled large vent template only because I don't want to accidentally use this scrap in another project. In addition to that, I have here an auger bit on a drill. You can use a spade bit as well. It needs to be big enough to accept the size of the blade of jigsaw or sawzall blade that's going through it that you're going to be cutting. So in this case, I just chose 7/8 inch. Carpenter's pencil just to make your initial markings. I like using a Sharpie only because when you trace the outline around the large vent template, you still have this free space around the outside. So even if the Sharpie still makes a mark on the wood, it doesn't matter because it's going to be covered up by the template as well. Sharpie's nice and easy to see. Here I have a impact wrench drill, which you don't necessarily need. You can use regular drill, but it's just convenient to have two drills. That way I'm not switching between the two when I go from vent to vent. These screws I bought specially for this. They're called a lathe screw. Lathe screws are used for holding on like a substrate. I like them because they have a nice big head. Then they're relatively flat, so they don't stick out. You could use a pan screw, but notice at the bottom here, you kind of want the bottom of the screw to be flat. So like a drywall screw wouldn't work because when you put it through the hole on the soffit vent, it can actually enlarge the hole or can stretch the hole out. Whereas by having a nice flat bottom to this screw, as you can see here, that it won't damage the soffit vent. If anything, it works kind of like a washer to provide more surface area, so you don't have to screw it quite as hard into the wood. I also have a tape measure. Obviously you'll need that. I use gloves for protecting my hands just because the wood around the outside as you cut it gets pretty rough. Also, in multiple spots in mine, I ended up pulling out squirrels' nests. You don't want to be touching that stuff with your bare hands. And lastly, I have I have Sawzall with a Sawzall blade. You just want it to be a coarse grain blade so it can cut through the wood. You're not looking for a super pretty cut. You're just looking to get it cut because the edge, that hangover on the soffit vent will provide a nice cover for any roughness in the hole. I'm gonna back up here a smidgen. I set up my ladder, and up on the top I have outriggers. Outriggers are definitely the way to go. Because I'm working just over a window, I've had to put the outriggers onto the roof line itself. I have solar panels up there as well, so I have to kind of be careful. I took a trip up already to make sure that it was sturdy, make sure it was safe before I start walking up there with tools. And I carried my extension cord with me, and you can see my extension cord I just tied off on the outrigger up there. If you're working with a one-story house, obviously this is not an issue. Or if you're working with all cordless tools, you won't need electricity up there as well. But just know that you want to make sure that you're safe and secure however you may be. The next course of action is to go up there. You can see I have another soffit vent there, and I have another soffit vent over here. And while I was up there, the first time I measured out and I found out that it's almost exactly over the window, so I shifted it over just a hair where I'll be doing it to directly over the window just to give it some symmetry. When you get up there, you'll find that it's not rocket science. You can just kind of eyeball where you put your template, and as long as it's relatively center, you should be okay. But if you're super anal retentive, you can definitely measure that out and make sure that it is nice and centered and squared up as can be. So once again, I'm gonna go back up there. I'm gonna trace out the outline of the template with Sharpie, where I've already measured it kinda. And from there, then I'll be drilling holes with the auger drill in all four corners. And then I'll be using the Sawzall to cut in between the four drill holes, right? And I'll pick up from there. right, here we are about 6 or 7 minutes later. I went up there, I traced my template out with a Sharpie, and then I drilled the 4 corners with the auger bit, and then I used the Sawzall in between the drill bits to clean it up so it gives a nice even hole. Notice you can still see, if you look close enough at the corners, you can see that there is a round hole where the auger bits were. So that is that. I did score myself a little bit of a squirrel's nest here in the process, but it is what it is. Over here, I'm gonna show you, I took caulk. I just used a lifetime warranty Sherwin-Williams caulk, and I caulked the edge with about a 3/16 inch bead around the outside. I set aside my 6 screws. I'm going to carry this up. I already brought my drill up before, so my drill's already up there. But I'm going to carry this up kind of like a pizza, and then in the end, I'll probably keep the screws in my pocket and kind of smush that in place, and then one by one, drop the 6 screws in the 6 holes. It's going to squeeze some of the caulk out. That's okay. I'm going to run my finger along the outside edge to give it a nice clean bead. I did use white because I don't have any clear left and I have to touch this up anyways. So in the end, I will have to go back up there in a couple hours, and at least a couple hours, and repaint it, or at least paint around the outside. That's okay, because I would need to paint the screw heads anyways, unless I really like them showing, but I don't. So that is that. I'll come back in just a little bit. Alright, so this is the finished product. Doesn't look super sexy. It isn't spilling out on the sides. That's okay. It's making contact, and I actually went around and kind of pushed up on the actual material, and I could see that it was making contact through and through. I'm going to wait for this to dry and then come up and give it a coat of paint along with my ledger board there that's flaking, just to make sure that it looks all nice and pretty and that it's sealed to the elements. Notice one thing I forgot to mention: when the louvers are pointed inwards towards the house, right? You don't want them pointed outwards, because wind technically could blow rain into them. You don't ever want that. So by having the size hole that I have and having the louvers facing in towards the house, this will allow more airflow to naturally get sucked up through convection up into the attic, and hopefully will help keep my attic just a little bit cooler. Thanks for watching.